Hey guys, so the last video we set up the animator and we have most of our animations set up with transitions and whatnot, and now we're gonna try and see if we can get these to work now in our subclass animal um, objects. So before we can get there though, we're gonna have a little bit more setting up to do. So let's just dive right in and get that going. So in your hierarchy, you're going to find your the bottom here. It's going to be Team AI Programming. Find your name. That's going to be kind of like your workstation in the actual hierarchy. And find your animal that you're working on. In my case, I'm working on the stag, so the brackets here are representing that this is kind of consider a folder object because it's kind of empty. I'll show you here in the inspector. Here we go. Let's see. So in the inspector, it's just basically an empty transform, just to hold our game objects that'll create the stag itself. So on the stag, this is where we're going to need some setup. So the first thing that we are going to add is, bear with me just 1 second, hold on. Alright, so the first thing we're going to add is going to be under your folder right here, see stag. Underneath your parent, you're going to have a subclass stag. Click that, add component, and we're going to add a rigid body. The rigid body, we can leave this as default for now. We might have to make some adjustments in here later, maybe the constraints, but for now you can just leave it blank and just collapse it. Now the next thing we're going to add is going to be a cap. I'm sorry, a sphere collider. We're going to create this as a trigger, so click his trigger. We're going to click on edit collider here, and you'll be able to see it. Just create the radius to be somewhat of a hitbox where if another animal gets within that, it's going to make a decision to either flee or attack. So we don't have to be super judgy on this. Let's just go for now, because we're gonna have this all optimized later. We'll go with let's say 2.5, just something kind of round. 3 maybe, I don't know. See what you like, depending on the size of your animal. Stag's pretty big, so we'll go 2.5. I think that's fine for now. Okay, so now the next thing that we're going to add, let's just collapse that for now. We're going to add the subclass script. So in our case, I think I've already set these up for everybody, so you should have them. If not, contact me and I'll show you how to create one real quick. But other than that, it should be there in your folder. So this is the stag, so we're going to add component. We're going to just go stag. There it is. There's my stag script. Okay, this is the subclass to the base class animal. And we'll get into that in a few minutes. We're just going to leave this for now because we're going to dive deeper into this in a few moments. Alright, before we dive into that, we're just going to add the rest of the components that we need. The next one is going to be a nav mesh agent. The nav mesh agent all we're really going to be looking at here. Hold on, let's just disable the sphere collider just for a moment. So no, we'll leave it on. Don't worry about that. I don't want to confuse you guys later on. But let's zoom in a little bit. Actually, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take the stag, grab it by its parent, and click on this arrow move tool up here. I'm just going to move him just a little out of the way, just so we can see him a little bit better. We'll zoom in enough, just enough to see him. And then go back to your actual game object stag, and what we're going to do here in the nav mesh agent, we don't need to mess really with much at all, but just for now we're going to adjust the radius. Okay, so obstacle avoidance, this is basically for our AI pathfinding for the most part. This is going to be kind of like a collider for anything that's, you know, in the way that we can't walk through. And the height of that, obviously you can see it's a little too tall. We're just going to just drop it a little bit, so just kind of give it a decent number. And I'm going to change this radius to a to a round number, so we're going to go 0.5. I think that's fine for now. We can let the testing team really work on it. Actually, let's go 0.65. 0.65. I think that's fine. It's probably a little big, but for now that's good. Alright, so now that we have that set up, we have the nav mesh. We can collapse this because we're going to leave all this as default. I'm going to make this round again too. So 0.3. Yeah, that's good. Alright, so our nav mesh agent, let's just collapse that because the rest of this we're going to leave as default for now. The next thing that we're going to add is an add component animal animation trigger event. I'll explain this script more thoroughly later. We don't have any setup here, just add it to it and that's pretty much it. This will run sufficiently on its own when we get to the point where we need to really kind of talk about that. So now that these are all set up, the next thing we're going to do is really work on our stag script. This is where we're going to have a lot of different references control this AI system. So go ahead and double click here on the stag or whatever your script that's attached to your animal. Okay. Alright, so here in our stag class, we don't need to inherit from mono behavior. We're going to inherit from the base class animal, which already has a mono behavior attached to the animal, so we're just going to inherit right from there. And the next thing, I think the easiest way to do this is over here in your Solution Explorer, and if you don't know how to find this, just go to View and select Solution Explorer. Now let's find our animals we already have set up, so you can reference, for instance, my bear, and we're just gonna drag this and dock it on the right or whichever side you want. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take all of this, everything in the class from bear, and we're just going to copy and paste just like so. For now, just delete all these animations and we're just going to add those in later. for now, and we're going to have to rename a lot of these to make sense for our stag. So I'm just going to change this from bear to stag animation state, and this is going to also be bear, oh sorry, stag animation state, and rename this to stag. And actually, you know what, let's do this a little different. Hold on, just backpedal here a little for a second. If you right click on it, hit rename, and stag animation state. Alright. Alright, hang on one second so I can just reference something here. Okay, perfect. And then again here, let's just right click, rename, and we'll call this stag state, and apply. Alright, and we're going to keep going down through. So instead of changing to a bear idle state, we want a stag idle state. These aren't all set up yet, so we're going to get some errors for a little bit, but we'll resolve those soon. Okay, so next we're going to go into the update function. This is overridden. Notice these are protected overrides because they're overriding our animal class. So here, that's fine, that's fine. We're going to do set, and let's rename and call it set stag animation. Enter. And you notice this is changing most of the stuff here in the code, so we don't have to do them each individually. Okay, so going down the list, okay, this one's good, stag animation state, and then we got change state stag state, that's fine, also fine, take damage is fine. Here we're just going to have to change this one to a stag idle state. That's going to be our entry point to the animation tree, so we're going to start with the idle. And then here at thirst, this should all be good, except we're going to go stag find water state. Like that. And sleepy is going to be stag sleep state. Down here at look, let's just go through sphere cast, eye position, animal stats, and I'll show you animal stats later, just so we can understand what all that means. And here for now, just we can use wool for testing. We're going to add more to this later on, but for now, let's just set this up. So change state here. We're going to do a stag chase state. Trigger, this is fine for now. We'll just leave this, except we're going to change this to stag attack state. And these are fine. We're going to mess with these tags later, but for now, don't worry about them. And just leave these alone. This is something we're going to mess with later on as well. And the gizmos, that is set fine. Yes, animal stats, so that's fine. Okay, so make sure to save. And in the next video, what we're going to do is set up all these states themselves so that they exist properly. But before we end this video, we're just going to go through one last part here, which is we're going to set up our animation states. And so what we're going to do, for me, I'm going to, if you have two monitors, obviously that's easier, but I can't show you on two monitors, so I'm just going to hit Window and hit the Window key and left, just to kind of have two screens on one side here. Just move that out of the way so we can read our script easily. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our animator. I'm not sure. Hit no on that. I'm not sure what that means. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. Starting with entry, whichever you call this. So in my case, it is idle 1. I didn't rename these yet, and if you didn't yet rename these, you know, at one point you're going to want to go through and do this. So idle 1, comma, oops, that's supposed to be a 1, and then idle 2, walk 1, the next one is walk back, comma, walk, what's that, walk slow, so walk slow. And you're just going to go all the way around the tree. I'll just do a few more with you. And then this one is run. Then we have sleep, start, sleep idle, sleep, end, and just go all the way around the clock till you get till the last one, wherever the last one right before your entry. Alright, sorry about that, guys. My microphone cut out again. But as I was explaining before I cut out, you can see these enum values have an integer set them. Like for instance, idle 1 equals 0 and idle 2 equals 1, so forth and so on. That is why we set this up, and it has to be in order, because if you remember, our transitions is using the state equals 0 for idle, and over here idle 2 is using the state integer 1, which is why it's important to make sure that these are in order so that they connect right. So you can double check these after you set them all up. And the way this works, just so you've got an idea, is this function right here, the set animation, is taking in this parameter here, which is the state that we set up here, which is an integer. So we're just casting it as an integer in order for this whole system to work. And like I said, this is kind of a work in progress. I think it's keeping our animation tree pretty clean, and code is pretty easy to write. which you'll see later on. So for now, this is working. If things get too complicated, messy, and big, we may or may not have to adjust this or change it or find a different system. But for now, this system seems pretty clean. And I think the code looks really nice too. So let me know how you guys feel about this setup for the animator and the code built around it. So that's what we're going to do for now in this video. In our next video, we're going to set up each one of these states and hopefully get those working properly so we can start testing stuff. There's a few other things we're going to have to set up on the animal and in the map itself. But we'll get to that soon, and we'll be able to finally test our animal and see if it comes to life and starts doing some things. Alright guys, we'll see you in the next video, and have a great afternoon.